What is up, guys? Welcome to the Comeback Athlete Podcast. I'm your host today, and I have that music was terrible. And I have Blake here with me, and we're just so excited to be here on another podcast with you guys. Today's topic, we're just going to dive straight into it. We're going to talk about progressive overload and kind of how we implement that into our programs for our athletes. So, Blake, you want to kick us off?
Sure. That we're still staring at this thing because it's so shiny.
It's crazy.
But it's this is really cool. We're at what is this called? Cohatch?
This is Cohatch, downtown Lakeland. It's amazing.
Connor started getting a membership here and working here, so we get access to this podcast room now, which is dope. Way to hook us up.
I still haven't had puberty, but it's kind of.
Oh my gosh.
That was Blake, guys.
That was totally me. I'm hoping to hit puberty this week. Oh, progressive overload. I am so tired. I just got done working out, so I need to roll off Connor's energy today.
Well, let's talk about that first. What did you do for your workout?
Oh my gosh. What did I do for my workout? Okay, so I did 5 sets of heavy 2, 85% power clean.
Okay.
And I felt heavy today. That did not.
That's like what, 305 for you?
Yeah, no, I wish. I'm gonna not tell the listeners so I don't embarrass myself. And then it was 5 sets of 4 to 6 heavy bench.
Nice.
Yeah. And then it was 5 sets, intervals of 25 cal row, 15 handstand push-ups, 20 dumbbell snatch, and then 30 ring dips. Rest 90. Yeah. It was a lot of push today.
It's a lot. Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you a secret. I wimped out on the last set. I did not do the 5th set.
It's okay, bro.
I had to come
I've
here.
Been there.
Yeah,
Been there.
I was like, the first 3 I held really good pace. You know, it was in 2 to 3 seconds, and then the last one, fourth one, I like tanked by like 45 seconds. And I'm like, I'm done.
Just make sure Michael Band's not listening to this.
Oh, he'll see it. He will see it. Anyways, yeah. So I'm coming back down from that, and had to find parking. And Connor was waiting for me. I'm late, like normal. So here we are.
Okay, we're here.
We're here. Progressive overload. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to I think we should break this down just real simple of what it is, because it's not that complicated.
Yep.
And then I think what would be cool is if we can talk about ways that we have been able to apply the principle of progressive overload, but get creative.
Yeah.
So we can dress it up. So progressive overload is the resistance training principle that's been around for over 100 years of slowly making the resistance more challenging week to week, month to month as you progress the resistance. So you can do that in a lot of different ways, right? So you can up the weight, which is kind of like the most common, right? Yeah. So it's like, you think about, you do 4 sets of 10, and each week you try to up 5-10 pounds.
Easy.
Right? And you just keep going.
All right.
Another way you could look at it is you could just say, hey, we're going to do 6 reps this week. Next week, we're going to do the same weight, 8. Next week, we're going to do the same week, 10, 12, right. And you just keep going.
Yep.
So like, it's just a gradual progression. And what people don't get, especially a lot of people who like to do kind of like, I call it sexy programming. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what we call that. But
fun
programming. There we go. It can lose those principles, and then people can have a lot of fun but not get results.
Right.
Because you're not going to get stronger, better 100%. Unless you're somehow progressing. So Connor and I and the rest of the coaches that come back, we're real big on making sure that's a big part of the program, and that progressive overload is applied to the goal of the client.
Right.
Okay. Is that fair? You want to add anything to that?
No, I love that. I think the other thing I always like to add is it's great for the beginner, because I think for the beginner, what I see a lot is that they don't know how to go to what we like to call failure, which we can talk about that a little bit too. But in order to put on muscle, right, whether you're weight loss, you're looking to put on size, whatever the case might be, you have to train within that, 8 to 10 RPE.
Yeah.
And not all the time, but enough to where the muscle is breaking down. So I think a lot of times what I do with my beginners is I'll say, hey, you're going to do 8 to 10 reps, increasing weight, right, by 4 sets. And then the following week, you're going to take the heaviest weight that you did last week across all 4 sets, right? And then we're going to probably go like the third week. Now I want you to take, that same weight that you did, and you're going to do 12 to 15 reps until they're literally like, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Great. Now we reach where you're your plateau is with that weight. So then we can either go more sets or we can go down, and then whatever the case might be. But
what do you like to do when someone hits a plateau?
Plateau with their weight?
Yeah. I'm curious because from coach to coach, I've heard different things. So I'd like to hear what you think.
So let's give one example. Let's say this person, Joe Schmo, is doing dumbbell bench 10 to 12 reps, and he's maxing out like with 50-pound dumbbells. Granted, let's also be super specific about this. If Joe Schmo is doing 10 to 12 reps for 4 sets at 50-pound dumbbells, and every set he's hitting 12 reps, he's not going heavy enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing. If I don't see that Joe is like, okay, he hit 12 reps for that first set. Second set was like 12 reps, and maybe I even put this in his comments and I asked him to. It's like first set was 12 reps, but like an RPE 9. Second set was 12 reps, but it was like till failure.
Yeah.
Third set was like 11 reps. Fourth set was like 10. Right?
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, that's
those are good
perfect.
responses. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, so maybe we do that for the next week. And I say, hey, I just want you to beat the reps that you did last week, total reps.
That's progressive overload.
Perfect. Perfect example, right? So from there, once he's like reached his max capacity in that, then we're just going to go back down to 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm going to say, hey, I need you to go heavier than you did last week. Use the same principle. But again, like I think people look at progressive overload, it has to look this way.
Yeah.
It's very specific towards the person's needs, and not all the time. Like, but if you're not seeing any change, like it's not working, like you're just upping the volume and they're like not being able to hit it, then change it. Change either the rest time is another huge one.
Yeah.
If you have them resting like, 60 seconds, just up it to 90 seconds so they can recover a little bit more and get some more reps in.
Yeah.
Right. So, which is not usually the case. It's usually vice versa. But yeah, there's just so many variables to change with progressive overload, which makes it really fun for the coach because there's so many different ways to program it.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think I've ever been stuck of like, oh, like this didn't work, this didn't work. Like there's always an option. I think it's just trying to figure out what option works the best for the
client.
Fleet.
Yeah. And then that also brings in like creativity,
right?
Which was what we were going to get to.
Yeah, 100%.
That's cool. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
One new one that I just learned on like when someone hits a plateau, just on that, just because that was fresh in my head because my coach Michael Band, he did this thing with me where it was old school, and my training age is like 25 years or more. Like I've got a lot of wear and tear on my body. I'm an old man. We got to make the sound effects when I do that.
Oh wait, hold on. Just wait a second. Technical difficulties, real quick, because this is going to be perfect.
We'll edit this in so it's smoother.
Yeah, wait. Voice disguise, make it fun. Okay, here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
There we go. That's a good joke.
I'm an old man.
I think it's this one actually we need it. That's funny.
Yeah. That actually made me feel a little depressed.
Sorry.
No, you're
wait,
good.
hold on, here we go.
I feel good again. So he took me through a strict press cycle for like, I think he made me go up 5 pounds for literally 8 weeks. I was so tired of doing strict press.
Man,
that's a long time.
that is a lot.
So
were you able to every single week, by the way?
Every week.
Wow.
But I started around week 7, week 8, like not being able to hit it.
Okay.
So what he would do is he would do very much what you said, which is like, so 1 week I get stuck, right? I'd be, doing, I don't know, I have a pretty good strict press, but let's say
like 275.
No, but it was like 4x8 at like 165.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
my max is like 175.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is crazy because my split jerk's terrible. So it's, but anyways, so I would struggle. Like, let's say I'm supposed to hit 8 reps of that. And I was only hitting 6, 5 to 6 at the end.
Right.
He would say, okay, next week, do it again.
Right.
And then if I got close enough to hitting almost all of them at 8, he'd make me go up again. But when I would hit 2 weeks in a row where I couldn't hit it, he dropped me actually 25, 30% and then make me restart the whole cycle.
No way.
And it actually worked.
Yeah. It's actually so funny that we were talking about that because Sean and I were just talking about this today. With like pull up volume.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, let's say we're going up every week by like 4 reps, 5 reps. Once they start to tank, go back down again, but you're going to start higher than you did before.
Right,
so let's say you started at 155 for your strict press.
Yeah.
You did that for 8 weeks and you get up to like 195.
Right.
And you just cap at 195. Okay, we're going to go back down, but we're going to start at 160.
Yep. That's the same principle.
Yeah, I love it.
It's a very cool one if you really like going linear.
Yeah. which I do.
Yeah, I do too. It's just more simple, but we serve a lot of clients that get bored easy.
100%.
So let's talk about how we try to help them. So we've kind of gone over the principle of progressive overload. We talked a little bit of it in our own programming, and we picked each other's brains. But what would be some really good ways that you find that you let's say someone gets bored, like they're the classic, I can do linear progression for 3 weeks.
Right.
And then I'm bored. And this is like, I'll do the 4th week, but you can start to see, I'm not showing up for all the workouts. Maybe you give 5, I've done 3 or 2, and I'm starting to like tank it on some stuff. And you're like, what's going on? What do you do for a client like that? What are some ways that you like to get more creative?
Yeah, I definitely think I'm on the other end of the spectrum of like, I get too fancy with it.
Yeah.
Because I'm so afraid of my clients not having fun.
Yeah.
But I do like, that's also come back to hurt me where it's like, no, they should have just been doing this for like 4 weeks straight at least.
They get mad at you at the end when they didn't get results.
Yeah. So what I do,
I've had that happen.
Yeah. So what I do, I actually try to disguise it. Right. So I don't even want to say it because I don't want my clients to know, but I'm just kidding. So let's say I'm going to use an example like, let's use like a bent over row, for example. Okay. And let's say for the particular movement, I'm having them do a dumbbell bent over row.
Yeah.
Okay. I usually switch up movement selection every 2 weeks for most of my clients, which that sounds like it's a lot, but listen to how I progress this out. So let's say I'm doing a bent over row. The first 2 weeks, it's like 8 to 10, increasing in weight. Second week is, hey, you're going to take the same weight that you did last week. More reps, right? But then we're going to go and use that same weight. But the third week, I'm changing it to like, hey, you're going to put your butt on the wall. And now you're doing like an assisted chest supported row, right? So it's like same movement, a little bit different. So like it just looks appealing to the eye, right? They're like, okay, it's not the same thing that we did last week.
Yes.
It's the same movement though, right? And maybe making it a little easier for them. So it's like, hey, now we're going to go 12 to 15 reps, right? So it's like, I'm still progressing them. But in their eyes, it's just like, hey, we're always kind of doing something different. Yeah. Now, I think
there's enough.
Yeah, there's enough. And I think that where, especially the performance-based athletes that we coach, the accessory work that they do, that's where I have to make it the most fun. They're okay when they see power clean every single week. Yeah. Right. And that's progressing because they like doing that stuff. Right. And they know the importance of having to do it the same every week, but with like the accessory work and some of like the maintenance stuff that we do.
That's a bad word to some coaches.
I know
I use it too, don't worry.
I don't like using it.
You're in good company.
But that's where I try to like make it a little bit more fun. Which is just like disguising it really.
That's great. Really good. That's how you can tell like the difference between a coach who understands the principles and like a coach who's becoming more artistic, because they take the principles and they keep them, but they draw it up a little bit. That was really good.
It could be super chaotic if you don't know the principle, right?
100%.
So it could just be like, it could be CrossFit. I'm just kidding.
Well, I think that's actually, I'm like notorious for doing that actually in my CrossFit program. So like I'll keep, so I have one client that like, he has to do it's a hinge press Thursday. But I make it a CrossFit workout every week. So I have like dug up every hero girl workout, like, and we say CrossFit girl workout. So it's like a name of a female who, it's a classic workout for those of us who are listening who don't know CrossFit. That has a hinge and press, or I'll take like a principle of an old, like, or a rep scheme of one and change it so it fits that, but it looks sexy. And so, but the key is like, if he did 45 reps in the Metcon the week before and it was a short one, I'm going to make it so it's like 55 or more reps this week, but it's going to look, maybe it was 5 rounds last week. This one's like, 30, 20, 10 this week. So it's 60 reps. The next week's going to be like a 15-minute AMRAP of similar like different movements, but the same patterns, 100%. But I'm dressing it up. But the client thinks I'm just doing random workouts stuff. But I actually have principles that like, hey, this person's getting better each week or doing more volume every week. So that's another example in a more of a mixed modal kind of progression. But I'm a huge fan of what you said earlier. I want to come back to that. I think one of the best ways for like getting, if people want to come to us and they want to get strong and look like, I just want to look and feel like an athlete again. like making the movement the same pattern but harder
Yes.
every week.
Yeah.
So like
Okay.
like a really simple way.
Yeah.
Like we'll give an example of like let's just do the squat.
Right.
So like 2 weeks we're gonna do. I like how you had 2 weeks. So you keep the same movement, but you progress. Everybody can stay ADD friendly enough for 2 weeks, or they shouldn't be a client.
100%.
So it's like goblet squat for 2 weeks.
Right.
We progress the weight, we progress the reps,
right,
or sets. The next week we're gonna do double kettlebells.
Yeah.
Right. So it's slightly heavier, but it's a little bit more proprioceptive.
Right.
A little bit more challenging.
Yep.
The third week we're gonna do it from an elevated split squat. So front foot elevated. Now you got kettlebell racks. So that's 6 weeks right there.
Right.
Then the next maybe 2 weeks we do rear foot elevated.
Yep.
And so now right now I have 8 weeks of split squats, but it feels like 2 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah. So you just made me think of something that I don't know if I created this, but it's principles, right?
Please share it with me.
Yeah. But I love it though. I actually, I always get in seasons of like, I'm just doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
Now that I'm remembering, I'm like, I'm gonna have to start doing this again because I love it. And I think it's fun for the client is doing like high and low mechanical drop sets of something. So I'll explain what that is again, using the squat, because that's what I always do it with. Let's say, so high mechanical advantage and low mechanical advantage movements is as simple as it sounds, right? So for the high mechanical advantage movements, you can do movements you can load heavier, right? So think about how I can box squat at a high box, right? I can probably box squat maybe 100 pounds over my 1 rep max back squat.
Right.
Because just there's the way the movement's loaded. So
I can probably do 50 pounds more on my back squat than my front squat.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say you can do the reverse. So let's say we start from low to high, right? And I will start with let's go a front squat, right? Because that's going to be
the most challenging.
Exactly. So like the 2 weeks we're going to do, build to heavy 3. Second week, it's like try to beat that, right? Then the third week we're going to go to, so it's the same movement for 2 weeks, but then the third week we're going to go to a back squat and the same thing, build to heavy 3, try to beat it the next week.
Yep.
And then we're going to go to like a low box squat, right? So like a 20-inch box, 2 weeks, and then a 24-inch box, then a 30-inch box. So to the point where it's like, okay, we just did 8 weeks of squatting, but like the movement had changed every single week, but we're actually getting heavier weights every single week because of the advantage of the lift. So that's one, I love doing that. You can do that with chest, arms, like whatever you want to do. Yeah. I thought that was a really cool way to just like get creative.
That's because you're a bro. That's like mechanical drop sets are like the ultimate bro.
They are, man.
Like, I'm excited for whatever day that is.
Like I think a lot of when I was just coming up, like coaching and like figuring stuff out and doing my own workouts. I remember in college, like I would do this stuff all the time. Never knew what it was called, right?
Sure.
Like I was doing progressive overload in my sleep, but I didn't even know the principles to a T.
Yeah.
So it's so funny when, I find this stuff out, I'm like, oh, that's what that's called. I've been doing that forever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think a lot of us do that naturally, right? Like one of the best things I used to do, one of my favorite like combos, and I haven't done it forever because we don't have a lat pull down machine at our gym, but we go from wide grip lat pull down straight to like close grip and just like burn out.
Yeah.
And I loved it, man. It was the best.
Because obviously it gets easier as you come closer to your body.
100%.
Right? For those who don't know, you'll know. You'll know. Just
try it out. Try it out. Yeah.
Further away from your core, core extremity, the harder it is. That's awesome. That's good. Actually, I'm going to try that. I might add some of that mechanical tension. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
I've done like some high to lows and low to highs.
Yeah.
Just playing around, especially with volume. But just for our listeners, like, so what we call this type of progressive overload, we call this accumulation typically.
Right.
And we're just accumulating more volume. We're accumulating more difficulty week to week. When we switch the programming, and by the way, that should be like 80 to 90% of most people's programming.
100%.
Just staying there for the year.
Right.
But maybe 15, depending on the sport, depending on the client, like 15 to no more than 20% of the year should be intensification, in my opinion. I'm sure people disagree with me, but like generally speaking, I think that's fair.
100%.
So let's explain what intensification is and how you would differentiate that from accumulation for people and how we do progressive overload.
Yeah, I love that. And then I think that'll be a perfect segue for our next podcast too, is going into what is going to, how we can maybe cut this part out, but explaining how we actually even program out a whole program.
Yeah.
Like going like whatever it is. So
yeah. Like step-by-step assessment.
Yeah.
Great. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
intensification.
Yeah, intensification. So yeah, stay tuned for our next podcast. We're going to go into this in detail. But so the easiest way that Blake was saying, before you even want to go into an intensification cycle, you want to make sure you've accumulated enough volume. Because if not, it's like it's kind of pointless, right? Yes, you can do it. Like if you have like, I don't know, you might be training for a competition or a workout. Like you just got to get like, you got to feel like you're, breathing heavy or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
But if you really want to see the results of what a good cycle looks like, you always want accumulation going into intensification. So again, let's use a back squat, for example. All right. So let's say we just went through that whole low to high or high to low mechanical advantage drop set. After, what I would do is the simplest way to intensify something is just to like decrease the rest. Right. So let's just say, hey, we get all the way down to, doing front squats. Or if we went the other way and we finish at back squats, it's like, okay, we were just taking 400 pounds for 4 sets and we were resting 90 seconds. Right. Now we're just going to sit there, and now we're going to rest 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're going to go to next week until I
45.
literally can't do it anymore. Right. Yeah. So that's one way to intensify it.
That's really brutal.
Yeah.
By the way,
super
if
brutal.
anybody's ever done that, it's like,
oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's just like lifting on the minute. Right. It's brutal. So, and then the easiest way is just to literally make the loads heavy enough, right? So it's like when you're doing 1 to 2 reps.
Yeah.
And intensification in a strength cycle is very different compared to intensification like in an aerobic cycle.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into.
They're opposites, actually.
Yeah, they are actually opposites. So, and again, we'll explain that more. But as far as progressive overload and strength component, it's like, hey, the heavier you go, the more intense it's going to get. Right. So that's the simplest way of putting it. It's like when we get close to peaking you for the next cycle or your retest, those couple weeks leading up to that, you're going to be lifting the heaviest you've ever been. Yeah. Right. Because most of the time we're going to be in that 70, maybe all the way up until 85, maybe touching 90, but really intensifications from like 85 to 100% of your max weight.
Yeah.
And then you take a deload and then you retest, and hopefully it's better than when we started.
Definitely. I've trained a couple power lifters, and they're probably going to be more of the people that, depending on how many competitions they do a year, that are going to do more like 20% of intensification in their cycle. But I want to 100% agree with what you said earlier. Like if they don't do the accumulation first, it really does make the intensification more challenging. Right. I've had a couple of those I've had to troubleshoot because of just when someone signed up for a competition. It's like, I got 6 weeks to get you better. Like, it's just like,
it's only so much you can do.
Yeah. And we did it, but it was like, we PR'd 10 pounds on his deadlift, and 5 pounds on his bench.
And it could have been 50 if you would have had a full cycle.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But it's okay. It's okay. But like, they were happy with it. So, but like a classic, super simple, like just an example would be like a 5-3-1.
Right.
So it's like, it's a 4-week cycle.
Yep.
Let's say we go week 1, we're going to do 5 sets of 5. Week 2, we're going to do 3 sets of 3 at a much higher percentage. So it's like, let's say we start at 75% on the 5x5, which 75%, that's heavy for 5.
100%. Yeah.
And then you go up to 80, maybe 5%, and you do 3s. And then you're like, maybe you go like a range like 85 to 80. So you're like building on those 3 sets. And then the 3rd week, you're going to go like 5-3-1.
Right.
And so you do 5% at 80, 3% at 85, and then you're going to hit 1 plus. So try to hit 2 if you can at 90.
Yeah.
And then what I like to do, but every coach is different, is like I do a deload then a reload. So it's like the 4th week you're going to feel smoked if you have a high training age and you can actually push your CNS pretty high.
Yeah.
You're going to feel pretty smoked. So like deload and then retest the 4th week.
Okay.
Some people like to just be like, no, go right into the test next week. You're primed and ready.
Right.
Sometimes I'll play, like that's where personalization comes in. It's like, just ask where the client's at. You talk to them, how are they feeling, how their joints feeling, like, if they're like, dude, I'm craving sugar and I'm not sleeping, it's like, let's deload this week.
Right.
If they're like, dude, I feel great and I'm still horny,
Right.
it's like, great. All right, you're ready to max out.
Exactly. So good.
So like, but that's like a really good, simple strength cycle for a power lifter.
Yeah.
But that would be like intensification. And then right after that, you go back into accumulation.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good.
You got another example that you do?
Yeah. I will say this.
It's like a different type of client. Like,
okay.
You can do like a CrossFitter or even, how would you do that with hypertrophy?
Okay. Yeah. Good. I actually wanted to talk about that. So like for a beginner, right? Like a soccer mom that comes in, the first thing that I'm going to do with any beginner client is test to see where their enemy is at. Right. So super simple way to do that is have them build up to a 1 rep max, take 85 to 90%. I know OPEX is a little different, but take 85 to 90% of that max, rest 5 to 7 minutes after that 1 rep max. And then you're going to take 85 to 90% of it and then do as many reps as you can.
Yeah.
If they're over 5, I should say if they're over like 6 really, then their enemy is so freaking low. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. Which means their ability,
stronger.
Yeah. Their ability to recruit their muscle neurons it's like non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that could just be from their sport, right? Maybe they're a soccer player, maybe they're a cross country runner. So a lot of endurance. So the first thing that I want to do with them, right? If we want to get somebody strong, we got to build their muscle first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just like Blake said, like we got to go through hypertrophy phase first. So for a soccer mom, I'm probably going to do a bunch of like, I don't know, goblet squats, like 12 to 15 reps. And I'm just going to keep building that up and just try to build as much muscle as I can. So then when we get back into that accumulation cycle, she's going to be ready to go. Right. Because if I put her into that accumulation cycle before the prep work, she's going to see little to no results. Right. And the reason why I say that is because you're just accumulating where she's already at. Right. You're just accumulating work. And granted, can she get stronger? Yes, because she's a beginner and it just kind of happens with beginners.
Yep.
But to the point of how much better she could have gotten if we would have started this cycle off by building her up first and building the muscle and having her in a longer hypertrophy phase, it would have been night and day difference.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just super important. Like, I think that was a huge learning curve for me. I always bypassed that first stage. Yeah. And again, they always saw results, but it's like, when did that start capping off was when it's like, hey, it's 3 months now past our last cycle and you haven't PR'd in like 2 years. Right. So it's like, when have we done any single leg work? When have we done anything and above 10 reps? Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's so important. Even for longevity, right? It's like, you can't just think that constantly doing 5x5 back squats is going to get you jack legs. Totally. Right. So there has to be some level of that. And like you said, for the more experienced lifters that have a super long training age, you know, even Juggernaut says this, like they'll even go through a week of hypertrophy. That's 100%. How important it is. Granted, they only go through a week of it compared to the beginner who might go through 6 to 8 weeks of it. Yeah. Right. So
it's different. So it's for Connor's throwing through a lot at us right there. It was really good. Yeah. So like a couple things, hypertrophy, for those who are listening, don't know, is just trying to grow muscle, just trying to get bigger muscles. But the type of training for that doesn't mean, because I get a lot of clients who come in and like, I don't want to get bigger. Like, it's very difficult to get a lot bigger, to be honest. Yeah. And for a lot of clients, when they get into a hypertrophy phase, they're going to look leaner actually. So they actually look like they lost weight, even if they stay the same, because your muscle to fat ratio changes. We call it body recomp. But the reason an advanced athlete like he's talking about would do more hypertrophy phases, like the Juggernaut one, would be like, it's more for joint health. Like
100%.
It's just really good 100%. To do that for powerlifters.
You're prepping the body.
Yeah. Any athletes, anybody, like it's just a good routine throughout the year to make sure you're getting some good joint work in and that you're just taking care of that. You're doing low demanding movements as far as like not a lot of plyometrics or high intensity movements like cleans or ollie lifting, right. And just letting your body heal up a little bit. Right. Or if you do that, because that's your sport, you're dropping the percentages to 50 to 60 in tech work, right. And then a lot of hypertrophy. Right. But like, what would you, so back to that, like when you say hypertrophy for the soccer mom, are you talking more like they need to learn like the mechanical tension and the right neuropath like slowing them down and giving them lots of repetition before you go into an accumulation phase? Is that, I'm just trying to make sure it's clear.
Yeah. Great question. Yeah. So, I mean, it just, like Blake said, right? So if we want to get somebody stronger, right? Like there needs to be muscle there to do that.
Mhm.
Right. And the best way to build muscle is in a hypertrophy phase, meaning we're going to have to do more reps at lighter loads,
Mhm.
right? Just to build the muscle first.
Yeah.
And you can think of it as different phases, right? So we're going to build the muscle, then we're going to make the muscle strong, right? By doing heavier weights and accumulating in that. And then we're going to peak the muscle when it's like we're in that intensification phase, right?
Yeah.
To get to the point where we're like, hey, we're maxing out.
Yeah.
Right. Then we deload and we do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've done that enough, you'll see that hypertrophy phase, like for example, this will be a perfect segue into our next talk. How we like to program is through different seasons, right? So we like to say that our spring phase is our preparatory phase where we're prepping the body.
Mm.
So for a beginner, a lot of times we're going to be in that for like 4 to 6 weeks, right? For the advanced athlete, we maybe need like 2 weeks of doing that, maybe 3, just depending on what the sport is, what are the demands.
Mm-hmm.
But it's super important that always happens, even for the elite level athlete, that there's some kind of preparatory work before we go into accumulation.
Mm.
So yeah, that's going to be our next topic that we're going to talk about. And super excited to talk about this because it is how we program and how we kind of lay out a whole program for our clients.
Love it. Good stuff. There's a lot there.
Yeah, there was a lot there. Thanks so much, guys, for coming on. We're going to have to see if this, look at that song.
Yeah, beautiful.
We love that song. All right, guys, we appreciate you. Have a great day.
And bye.